A few months ago, I read an article. It was the series of femicides in 2018. It was published in the German newspaper. So it was the whole article was actually the list of all femicide in 2018 in Germany. And it was statistically it was like every 3 days there would be one woman being killed by a partner or ex-partner. Then we talked about it, and then of course also we had this story in Woyzeck that Woyzeck out of the jealousy, let's call it, killed Marie. So and also on top of that that Büchner wrote it based on the real story, based on the stories that also he read it in the newspaper. So then we got into the concept of the play that tried to borrow, let's call it borrowing the text of some lines of Woyzeck or storylines of the play of Woyzeck. But then I talked with my close friend Mahin because I really wanted to write it with I had Sima in the Dramaturgin team, and I really wanted to have a female writer to work with me because I didn't want to just look at my male perspectives, let's say. So Mahin also agreed to work on it with me to write a play.
I think this new play, which has come into existence, was really going through several stages. Like we have Amir and Mahin in Tehran writing it, you know, somehow as the journey went on, it became more and more apparent that it's actually going to be a very own piece, but still you have Büchner as a sort of reference, as it started somehow as a basis, and then somehow we got more into our own, or you got more into your own story. The more that this own story came to be shaped, the more this Büchner became more of a reference, and we wanted to have this very contemporary approach also on the language side, and then also to have these Büchner quotations coming in from time to time, which of course it comes from a totally different, it's 200 years ago language, and then also of course a kind of a poetic language, which is a very stark contrast to our very spoken language that we want to use for the play. And so when I translated this from Farsi, which also then encodes different cultural codes, which work very different in the daily language than to German language, this was a fine-tuning process which involved a lot of feedbacking between us. So we had to kind of navigate through this text and subtext a lot. And somehow I also think the more independent this piece became, the more we saw that the story we tell of this couple is really like in itself such a strong story that Büchner became kind of like rather a citat, a quotation.
I mean, we should not forget that this would be our premiere. So the question was if we want to do the conventional video of the show, like 3 cameras on 3 corners and switch it 1 to 2 to 3, and then just show it to the audience, or to develop a new language, try at least to develop the new language. So that's why we got into the point to ask to have a built regime. I also think that the language, the cinematic language we developed together with the team, I think it would be another point of view to the play, which also I'm curious to see. Interruption is a kind of aggressive act against in a very artistic way. So we are interrupting the pattern of, we try at least to interrupt the pattern by injecting different story of the femicide. We see that Franz Woyzeck was not just one person that killed his partner 200 years ago. We try to interrupt this systematic of violence by calling the play Woyzeck Interrupted.
And I think like what you said about what is the destiny of Marie, that is like one question, and the other question is to really look into this sort of masculinity, to look into this Woyzeck-coded masculinity, so to say, and to say, okay, like how can this pattern be changed, or how can we shift the perspective? Well, try, let's say, like we try with, right? Not just with the destiny of Marie, but also the destiny of Woyzeck, and to really also see where this gendered violence problem comes from. And then we also need to look at the men, so we cannot just tell the story from a female perspective. So we also have to include the male perspective for this.
Yeah, true, very true.
Not to fall into the trap of representation, of like of like showing one-to-one this kind of violence, and to kind of repeat it by this sense. And then we are back into the subtext, like to kind of then again say where do we sort of like have a visual subtext for this violence.
The first time while I was reading, I decided to work on the Woyzeck, I was thinking that what if that Marie, our female protagonist, would have the chance to see the play of Woyzeck? You know, what would be the reaction of the victim of the domestic violence to face the production that they claim that they are talking about the domestic violence. I mean, I'm very curious to see what would be the feedback after the online streaming.